your music is very, very modal, and your sound is often associated with Lydian sound. Mm-hmm. So could you just give us some case to work and to approach this kind of sound?
Sure, yes. You're referring to the modes.
Yes.
The modes are scales. Yeah. And what they are actually modes of a major scale. There's two ways that I look at modes and scales. Yeah. One is the very mental way, mm-hmm. The intellectual way, the academic way, the mind and thinking way. Mm-hmm. And that's, that can be important. Yeah. And I can talk about that. Yeah. Without giving you a whole history of modes. It's very simple, really. A lot of musicians are interested in what the modes are, but they seem intimidated. Yeah. But in reality, they're very simple. They're based on, there's very many different kinds of modes, but they're usually based on one scale. And simply, if you were in the key of G major, that's a G major scale. Very simple. And there's a flavor and a sound to it. And it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay. And it has scale degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And it's called a major scale. Yeah. If you start that same scale from the second note, that's the first mode of the major scale, or the second scale, and it's called a Dorian scale. And that's a Dorian mode. But it's just the major scale starting from the second note. Now, if I fingered it like this, it's same thing, just a different fingering. And if you break that down, what it really is a major scale with a minor third, as opposed to a major third, a major sixth, and a minor seventh, or which is sometimes referred to as a dominant seventh, but when discussing it in a minor context, you use the terminology minor. And then if you take this G major scale and start from the third note and go up an octave, that's called a Phrygian scale. And you can move it, and what that is basically is a minor scale with a minor second. Okay, this is all terminology. Yeah. It's just, this is all mental stuff that you can memorize. And when you understand the formula, it's easier to memorize. If you go to the fourth degree and you play a scale, that's the Lydian scale, etc., etc. And then you can build chords on the major scale. So each mode has a theoretical value to it. And it can be valuable to understand this, and it can be valuable to have it memorized. But it is not of vital importance. It's of relative importance. Okay. When it comes to the modes, what is of vital importance is the flavor, the color, the atmosphere that this mode sounds in, that it sets up. So if I say to you, this, I'm in E, and this is in the key of E major, and if I solo in the key of E major, these are my notes. I'm sorry. Okay, so those are the notes of the major scale. But when you're using the major scale, you want to hear the flavor of the scale. Soloing a little bit, very simply, to give you a color of the major scale. So when you're learning these scales, it will do you almost no good to just practice the scale. It's important to, when you're playing these scales, if you practice scales, is to sing them and memorize the flavor, which in the major is. And I'm not even making major progressions, I'm just showing you a pitch, kind of. Now the Dorian scale is a beautiful flavor. And the beautiful thing about the Dorian scale is that major sixth. So that's what you, and when I was learning my scales, I would sing. Then you feel the color of the scale. And if you know that it's a Dorian scale, which is a minor scale with a raised sixth, and it's the second degree of the major scale, that's all good, but it's not really that important. And then if you go to your Phrygian, that tone, that flavor is. This is that, you know, that almost that. That minor second. So that's the flavor of that scale. And if you really get into that sound as opposed to just knowing where your fingers should go, then you can. Oops. You heard when I slipped and I went to the major second how it changes the feeling completely. And the fourth degree is the Lydian, which, as you mentioned, is kind of a favorite for me, which is. And I just like it because it's just got that. It's not major. It's not quite major, but because major, that major fourth would be. And I like. And then the modes continue from there, you know. But it's really important to learn the color, because that's what's going to be very useful to you. The information is useful, but it's not of very big value.
Yeah. Not only a schematic work with finger.
Sorry?
Not only a schematic.
Yes, it's okay to practice with your fingers, but it's useless if you don't practice with your ear. It's useless because you'll just, well, not useless, but you'll just be a guy that knows what a scale is, and not a expressive personality that's using the color of the scale. You know, I'll give you an example. I'm a beekeeper, right? I make honey. I don't. The bees make honey. But honey is, you all know what honey is, right? But if a person has never tasted honey, they could study it. They could read many books about it. They can write books about it. They can break down its molecular structure into little tiny, you know, they can write they can get a PhD on honey, but they'll never know what honey is until they actually taste it. Because then it goes from being just a mental thing to an experiential thing. It becomes an experience. You can't explain what something tastes like. You can only taste it. I mean, you can try to explain, but no one will ever be able to know what you really are referring to. It's the same with the modes. You can edit this. I have a tendency to go on and on, I know. It's the same with the modes. You can understand them intellectually, but until you taste them, you'll never really know what they are.